Now, for target user, how will we contact the target user? First, we have to define who are they, and is a client can provide the user who can do the testing. Is there any email distributed list? A website they all visit? Maybe you can ask them to subscribe or pop up the survey for them. Any social media group that's so huge for social media nowadays. Um, any possibility of face-to-face meeting to get the user and local um, technology meets or user group meets. There's a lot of technology meeting groups nowadays. Some membership organization who have particular interest in the areas. For example, if you want to do a 3D graphics user experience, I think I would reach out to those CGraph groups to see there is any way to distribute those surveys to them. So there's two types of sampling method. One is probabilistic sampling and non-probabilistic sampling. One is probability distributed, then you know what the probability already. So if you want, okay, I want to study how I want the the total study is for 74% of students are the senior year, and 30% of them are junior. So then you already know. So that does have a weight for different sampling. And then when you're collecting, define the user groups, then you need to have that percentage of sampling there. And if it's not with the percentage distribution, then that's a different sampling, right? So in some of the study may not accept the non-probabilistic sampling, but HCI is relatively okay with that. So consents, two type of probabilistic sampling. One is a consent, one is a random sampling, or not all the people are chosen to participate, but it is known the likelihood of being chosen to participate is random sampled. And consents is where every single person will be chosen in the taking the survey, like populations, right? So this can be target users or targeted organizations, particular user of software applications. Stratified sampling, which is the sampling percentage, and then you are accordingly doing sampling based on the percentage. So stratified sampling is when you have a proper number of a response from each subset of your user population. For example, a random sampling of a college student would not have an equal number of freshmen, sophomore, and junior and senior. They don't have an equal number. So then you have a percentage, like you have 100 people in both sophomore and freshman, and you have 200 people in senior, junior, and then you got those percentage more heavily on junior and seniors. So you distributed this sampling equally, evenly among the population. The response size. So the response size is considered to be enough for what the response size to be considered is enough for a random sampling. This really depends on confidence level and margin of error. Well, if you are really looking for to get a 95% confidence level and plus or minus 5 margin errors, then you need a bigger response size. So once you get sample, a larger sample, then error margin will be less. So if you get everybody participant, yeah, there should be non error as far as the size of sampling, because you represent the whole group. So always when we have the sampling process, then we could have, error. There must be error there, sampling errors. It could be not enough response and very small size of sampling size. Coverage error, like if you're in the early case, we got the unevenly distributed student population, but we not putting percentage there, so that will be an error. Measurement error, the question are not very well designed. Non-response error or the channel of response are not very easy to use, then was not successful collecting data. All of those could be error. Non-probabilistic sampling. So basically, you are not use a strict random sampling. Do not likely of the do not know the likelihood of individual being selected. So you basically estimate and not really clear on the definition, like, oh, who is using website? Oh, everybody. But what's the percentage? You're not clear. But especially one is a shopping or e-commerce, you may don't know. You may don't have a predefined data to you to show that. So a lot of times HCI are more tolerant to those kind of sampling method. Because when we try to figure out the interface problems, a lot of times, even with the smaller size of sampling, we still get 80% or up to 5 participants. We should be able to find 80% of the error of the interface. So based on those theories, we should be still okay. So demographics data. Collecting demographic information always important in survey data. So one way do the testing, even for the HCI, most of the times we get a demographic data first, collect it, and then they starting to do the design testing. And so the demographic data can help. You may not have a clear use sometimes, but a lot of times you can find the correlationship of the data, and you also can figure out more detail later on about the correlationship. Or sampling, when there is not a well-defined list of user and no exactly knowledge of the population size, and the random sampling is not possible because you even don't know who is going to be the user groups, and the number of response became more important. When the number of the survey response enlarged is proportion to the estimated and perceived population size is known as oversampling. Having a large number of responses can reduce the likelihood of excluding any segment of the population. Not all the researchers agree on oversampling increase the validation. Not necessary if you are really doing you should have a clear target user and you are collecting something else, some other users, then oversampling wouldn't help. 30 survey responses is baseline of minimum size of population for experimental quantitative research. Other technique for could be random sampling for usage, non-user. If a survey appear every 10 times that web type is loaded, this is random sampling of users, not a user. User who visit the website often will be overrepresentative. Self-selected survey. If a website always have a link to survey, everyone is invited to fill out the survey. Often the non-probabilistic survey is not a random, is a self-selected. So establish information validation. It's depend on what kind of is probabilistic survey. If non-probabilistic survey are used, then the demographic information and response size both are important. As a first step to research and set up the, who is the user group even. So for some of the research don't have, is uninvestigated population. So we may need to partner with the leadership of the community. For example, we are doing a research on some particular communities, the way they use technology. Then we need to probably reach their community leadership to creating the sample size. So developing survey question is really, really important. The question have to be focused and not going to be biased or misleading. Things most of the survey are self-administrated, and the question need to be standalone without any explanation. We need to focus on both the overall structures of the entire survey and the wording specific questions. So a lot of times, beside those, multiple choice, really the open-ended question is important. Respondents may provide more information. Basically, if you ask them, do you have experienced this? Or do you satisfy this? And then you ask why. You leave a space there and give them opportunity to have more input. So closed-ended question is more like ranking. Likelihood scale is more closed-ended questions. Common question. Common problem with the questionnaire is asking two separate or possible related questions in one question. So that could be confused. They don't know what to respond. And they intend to answer one of the questions, not the other. It could be confusing. And the use of negative word is very confusing. Bias wording, identify the position of well-respected person, and the use of the hot button word. Be careful.